She didn't value your presence when you gave her everything. She didn't respect your loyalty when it was unconditional. She didn't appreciate your consistency when you showed up, day after day, holding the space that made her feel secure. Because deep down, she believed you'd never leave. She thought you'd always be there, quietly waiting in the background, no matter how many times she pulled away, ignored your needs, or tested your patience. She mistook your strength for weakness, your silence for indecision, your loyalty for dependency. But then something inside you changed. You didn't beg. You didn't argue. You didn't explode with anger. You simply vanished. Not as an act of revenge, but as an act of self-respect. You disappeared from the places where you once waited. You detached from the memories you once clung to. You withdrew your energy and poured it back into yourself. And that silence, that peace, that transformation, it screamed louder than any confrontation ever could. She didn't expect that. She didn't see it coming. Because when a man truly walks away, not in hatred but in clarity, the woman who once dismissed him begins to feel something far worse than guilt. She feels irrelevant. That's the moment she realizes you were never chasing her. You were chasing a future that needed both of you to show up, but she never did. And when you finally stopped waiting, you became someone she could no longer reach. Someone her games no longer worked on. Someone whose validation she couldn't control anymore. That, right there, is what Stoicism teaches us. Emotional control. Strategic silence. Inner transformation. A man who no longer needs to be seen to feel worthy becomes dangerously powerful. And to the woman who didn't value him when she had the chance, that silence becomes unbearable. Because now, her words won't bring you back. Her tears won't make you stay. And her ego? It's left speaking to an empty room. She didn't value your presence when it was constant. She didn't respect your loyalty when it was unconditional. She didn't see the strength in your silence or the weight of your consistency. You were always there, always showing up, always forgiving. And because of that, she believed you never would leave. That no matter what she did, no matter how distant she became, no matter how much she tested your patience, you'd keep chasing. You'd keep holding on to the idea of her, the memory of what once was. But then you changed. Not overnight. Slowly. Quietly. Something inside you shifted. You stopped waiting. You stopped explaining. You stopped needing closure. Because the truth is, you became it. Your silence was no longer a weapon. It became a boundary. You didn't vanish to teach her a lesson. You disappeared because you finally learned your own. You realized that holding on to someone who doesn't see your value is the fastest way to lose sight of your own. And so you let go. Not with a scream, but with stillness. Not with revenge, but with resolve. And that silence, that stillness, it was the first thing that shook her. Because she never expected you to leave with dignity. She never expected peace. She was prepared for arguments, late-night calls, angry texts, desperate confessions. She wasn't ready for composure. She wasn't ready for distance. She wasn't ready for a man who no longer needed to be seen to know his worth. And that's when it hit her. Not your absence. Not your silence. But the fact that you were no longer available to be manipulated. You didn't leave to punish her. You left because you outgrew the version of yourself who tolerated being undervalued. That is where Stoicism begins. Not in suppressing emotion, but in directing it. Not in seeking revenge, but in seeking yourself. She thought you'd always be around. Until you weren't. And now, your silence has become the loudest thing she hears. She expected noise. That was her mistake. She thought you'd react the way most men do when they feel discarded. She braced herself for the calls, the messages, the explanations, the desperate need for closure. But what she didn't expect was your calm. She didn't expect the man who once gave so much to suddenly give nothing at all. And yet, there you were, silent, focused, still. That stillness, it wasn't passive. It wasn't weakness. It was the product of a man who no longer needed to prove anything. A man who had stared into the mirror long enough to understand that his worth isn't determined by who stays or who leaves. You didn't storm out. You walked out with grace. And that grace, that restraint, that unshakable composure, it became her storm. She couldn't understand why her absence didn't break you. Why her silence didn't shatter you. Why her distance didn't make you chase. She forgot that the man who controls his emotions controls everything. You became what Stoics write about. The immovable center. The eye of the hurricane. The one who walks away not to escape, but to evolve. And she began to feel what you once felt: confusion, doubt, loss. But unlike you, she wasn't ready for it. Because she never imagined that her value in your life could expire. She always thought she had time. But time ran out the moment you found peace without her. When you stopped reacting, you forced her to start reflecting. That's the power of stillness. That's the agony of losing control over someone who once would have done anything to stay. She doesn't hurt because you yelled. She hurts because you no longer feel the need to speak. She doesn't ache because you tried to make her jealous. She aches because you no longer care if she sees you or not. She doesn't suffer because you're angry. She suffers because you're not. And that is the beginning of her unraveling. Not because of what you did, but because of who you've become without her. That's the quiet power of Stoicism. And that's what she never saw coming. She thought it was a game. She thought pulling back would make you push harder. She thought disappearing would make you chase. What she never realized is that men who grow tired of games stop playing, not with anger, but with silence. You were never trying to win her back. You were trying to win back yourself. And while she thought she was testing your value, what she was really doing was exposing her own. Her absence didn't reveal your weakness. It revealed your wisdom. That's what she missed. She played checkers, you played chess. Every move she made out of emotion, you responded to with discipline. Every time she pulled away to provoke a reaction, you held your ground. Not because you didn't care, but because you cared about something greater, your dignity. Hypergamy, ego, tests, all of it. You stopped trying to decode her. You stopped seeking signs. You stopped asking why. And that silence, that pause, it left her guessing. She thought detachment meant indifference. But true Stoic detachment is not indifference, it is clarity. You saw what she was doing. You saw the cycle. And you walked out of it without slamming the door. That's what confused her the most. You didn't leave like a boy angry that she left first. You walked away like a man who had finally remembered his worth. And now, she's stuck replaying the game she thought she controlled. She rewatches the scenes where she pulled back, expecting a reaction, only to be met with your silence. She replays the moments where she expected a chase and instead saw you building in silence. She's haunted not by the things you said, but by the words you never gave her. No closure. No fight. Just a vanishing act backed by self-respect. That's the move she never prepared for. Because deep down, she always thought she had the power. But power belongs to the one who needs nothing. The man who doesn't argue. The man who doesn't explain. The man who understands that sometimes the greatest revenge is not vengeance, but indifference. That's when she feels it. Not because you retaliated, but because you outgrew her completely. You didn't transform to prove a point. You didn't improve to get her attention. You evolved because staying the same started to feel like self-betrayal. That is the glow-up she never saw coming. She thought time would pass and you would come crawling back, maybe looking the same, sounding the same, needing the same validation. But the man who walked away came back unrecognizable. Not because you changed your clothes or got a haircut, but because your eyes no longer searched for her. Your energy no longer chased her shadow. Your value no longer lived in her recognition. That is what hurts her now. Not your absence, but the fact that she is no longer part of your rise. She watches from a distance as you become everything she once doubted you could be. Not bitter. Not broken. Just better. You went silent and came back stronger. You focused on the gym, your discipline, your peace, your craft. You stopped explaining your goals and started embodying them. And the more you built, the more she shrank. Because each new level of your life reminded her of the version of herself who didn't see your worth. That's the quiet pain she carries now. Not regret, but irrelevance. You didn't need to block her. You didn't need to post about your journey. You simply lived in such a way that her access expired. And that kind of glow-up is untouchable. Because it is not designed for attention. It is built on self-respect. She remembers how easily she ignored you. How lightly she dismissed your loyalty. But now, the man she ignored stands taller. Speaks less. Moves with purpose. That evolution is your power. And in that power, she finds no opening. She cannot reach you anymore because you no longer seek her. That is what Stoicism teaches. True power is quiet. True growth does not scream. It walks past everything that once felt like pain and turns it into fuel. She did not expect to be replaced by your peace. But now, your peace is the loudest proof that she lost something real. She looks at your silence now and sees her reflection in it. Not the version of her she projected when things were good, but the one who pulled away, doubted you, tested you. Your detachment is not just distance. It is a mirror. A cold, clear mirror that shows her what she failed to see when you were right in front of her. You are no longer reacting. No longer explaining. No longer waiting. And that calm, that steady removal of your energy, speaks louder than any accusation ever could. It says everything she needs to hear, without you needing to say a word. You were always the man who cared. Who stayed. Who tried. And she was the one who believed you always would. But your detachment proved her wrong. Not with anger. Not with words. But with the quiet refusal to keep participating in something that devalued you. Now she wonders if you ever loved her. But what she is really asking is why that love no longer needs her. Because that is the wound. The realization that you can feel deeply, but still walk away. That you can be loyal, but never foolish again. That you can remember her clearly, but never return to her. She expected your pain to make you chase. But it made you reflect. She thought your heartbreak would make you spiral. But it made you ascend. And now she stares at your absence, trying to understand how the man who once waited on her words now moves without needing them. That is what Stoicism creates. Not numbness. Awareness. Not indifference. Discipline. You feel, but you are not ruled by those feelings. You see her clearly, but you do not beg to be seen. And in that strength, she sees the weakness in how she handled you. She begins to feel the discomfort of her own ego. Because your detachment stripped away the story she told herself. That she could leave, and you would follow. That she could reject you, and you would come back. But now, all she has is silence. And in that silence, she hears the truth. That your growth was never meant to make her jealous. It was meant to make you free. By the time she realizes what she lost, you've already become someone she can't reach. Not out of spite, but out of growth. You didn't walk away to punish her. You walked away to find yourself. And in doing so, you became untouchable. The man who no longer needs closure becomes the one no one forgets. She lost you not when she left, but when you stopped needing her to return. That is the power of stillness. That is the essence of Stoicism. You do not chase. You do not beg. You evolve. And by the time she looks back, the door has already closed. Stay stoic and build your stoic legacy.